Hello, so we'll continue our class with the while loop. So for the while loop, it is used when you need to run a program for s when you need to run a program until a condition is met. So you keep on running the program until a condition is met. A typical example is let's say 2 raised to the power x is equal to 16. You mean to say that how many times do I have to multiply 2 by itself to get 16? So for the first time, I take 2. The second time, I multiply the 2 by 2 again, giving me 4. The third time, I multiply the 4 by 2 again, giving me 8. And the fourth time, I multiply the 2 by 2 again, giving me 16. And now that I have 16, I stop. Okay, so that is the logic behind the while loop. So use the while loop when you need to run a particular program or code for a number of until a condition is met. So, but then for the for loop, you only need to run the code until for a number of times. Is used when you need to perform an action a number of times. Okay, so that's for the for loop, but for the while loop, it's until a condition is met. So let me show you the syntax for a while loop. So the syntax, you start with the word while, not a capital W, just a while. While, then you state your condition. Okay. Now, while this condition is true, this action would take place. So we say action. Okay. So the computer will keep on doing this action until the condition becomes false. Okay. So let us look at a simple example. And let's say the number n is equal to 5. Okay, n is equal to 5, let's say. So we are saying that while n is less than 10, print I am running, or print condition condition is true. Okay, so for the first round, n is 5. So is 5 less than 10? Yes, 5 is less than 10. So the computer prints condition is true. Then after it does that, we say n plus equal to 1. So we are going to increase n by adding what? 1 to it. So we want to increase n by adding 1 to it. So by so doing, now when n is 5, which is less than 10, it prints condition is true. So this condition here is true. So it prints condition is true. Then it increases n by 1, making n 6. So is 6 less than 10? Yes, it's true. So it prints again, condition is true. Then it increases n by 1, making it 7. Is 7 less than 10? Yes, it's true. Prints condition is true, making it, and adds 1 to it, making it 8. And is 8 less than 10? Yes, it prints, add 1 to it, making it 9. Is 9 less than 10? Yes, it prints, add 1 to it, making it 10. Is 10 less than 10? False. Then it comes out of it. So let me print end. Okay, so if I'm to run this simple while loop, what we are going to see is condition is true, 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 then end. Okay, so let us put n here so that it prints the n value and tells us the condition is true. when I run this, you see when n was 5, it means condition is true. N is 6, condition is true. 7, condition is true. 8, condition is true. 9, condition is true. But on the 10th one, 10 is not less than 10. 10 is actually equal to 10. So it stops running the loop. Then it goes outside. Now, since this is not indented under the while like this, it's independent of the while statement. Okay, so this will run no matter what is happening to the while statement. Okay, so this is a simple way of writing what a while loop. So you say while this condition is true, the computer should perform this action. Okay, so if we don't increment this, the program will run forever. Okay, I don't know, when you run this, the program keeps on running forever. It keeps on running forever. And let me stop it. Stop interrupting kernel. Okay, so you see that it's running forever because n is 5 and it remained 5 throughout, and forever and ever 5 will forever be 5. Oh 5 will forever be 5. And let me clear the output. And oh sorry, sometimes it happens. So 5 will forever be 5 and it's always going to be less than 10, so it keeps on running forever. So make sure that anytime you write your while loop, it doesn't run forever. Okay, it doesn't run forever. Keyboard interrupting. So I've interrupted the code, that's why you see this. I just don't want to clear output. So let me say n plus equal to 1. So increase n by 1. So when I run this, I only get it printing 5 times. And in this case, n is increasing until n gets greater than 10. So that is what I'm talking about. So it only stops when a certain condition is met. And as long as the condition hasn't been met, it keeps on going. Okay, so let me use another example. Let's say we have to write some code where the role of the code is to find us the position of, let's say, the position of, let's say, a word or like an alphabet in a spelling. So we are doing position of an alphabet in a word or string. Okay, so let's say we have a word called hippopotamus. Hippopotamus, and we want to find the position of the T, okay, in this. So we say that while, let's say while, maybe let's put another variable called check, okay, and check will start with an empty string. Okay, so we start with an empty string. So while check is not equal to the string T, while check is not equal to the string T, we need to count. Okay, so we say position pose should start from 0. Okay, so while the word check, okay, let me just say letter. So while the letter is not T, we say position plus equal to 1. So, and but then the letter is forever not T. So we need to loop to be changing the letter. So for the first case, we have to go and pick the H and come and check if it is T. For the second stage, we have to go and pick the what? I and check. But this condition will not fit for a while loop. It will fit for what? A for loop, because we are going to loop over a specific number of items and check where T falls. But to fall within a while loop, we have to um, perform an action until a certain condition is met. Okay, so we can still make this look like a while loop, like until letter becomes what? T. So first we say that, okay, now letter will now be equal to word position. So now in the first case, so even though we can use a for loop, we are still using while loop in this case until the condition of finding T is met. Okay, so in the first case, letter is just an empty string. Okay, and the position is 0. So we say that we pick word, okay, this word, and we find position, and position is 0. So word, finding the position 0 in the word is H. So now our letter is now H. Okay, and we add 1 to the position. Now the position becomes 1. Now is H, no wait, not equal to, we are looking for equal to. Is H equal to T? No. So now the new letter becomes word position 1, which is I. Is I equal to T? No. Then position gets updated to what? 2. And 2 is P. 3 is P. 4, 5, 6. Then T will be the 7th position. Okay. T will be the 7th position. And by so doing, we print what position? Okay. We print position. Pose. So if I'm to run this, well, we had position to be what? 0. So while letter is equal to T, run this loop. But we are wrong. While the letter is equal to T, run this loop. But the letter is not equal to T in the first place. So you only run the loop while letter is not equal to T. And once the letter becomes equal to T, you stop running the loop. So when I run this, I'm going to get 8. I'm getting 8 because H is 1, I is 2, P is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So per the human counting, I did it according to the human counting, and I took care of Python's counting. That's why it's ended on 8. So H is 1, I is 2, P is 3, P is 4, O is 5, P is 6, O is 7, then T is 8. But according to Python programming, it's always the position of the code is always one less than, or because it starts counting from 0, it's always one less than the counting numbers we use. So I just subtract 1 from it and I get my 7. So that's the position of T. So this is a simple while loop. Okay, so while the letter is not equal to T, you keep on performing this action until the letter is what? Now equal to T. Okay, and once the letter gets equal to T, the while loop stops and it carries on. So this is a simple example with a while loop. We can still write another while loop. Okay, so let's say we have a question. Okay, so let's say a user wants to find the power. Okay, let's say 2 raised to what power? Let's say 2 raised to the power x is equal to a certain number. Okay, let's say 64. So how can we write a computer code that will calculate for x, that will find the power, or how that will find out how many times we should multiply 2 by itself to get 68. So we can say that while 2 while the variable 2 asterisk raised to the power, then let's say x, is not equal to 64, but then let's find the value. Okay, let's put in calc. Let's say calc is equal to 1. Okay, no, the calc we have is x, so x is equal to 1. So for the first instance, 2 raised to the power 1 is 2, right? It is not equal to. So then you print we've not found the answer yet. Okay, we've not found the answer yet. So 2 raised to the power 1, because x is 1 for the first time, is not equal to 64, so it means we've not found the answer yet. Then after that, x gets updated to x gets plus equal to 1. So the value of x increases to the next plus 1. So 1 plus 1 making 2. So 2 raised to the power 2 is it equal to 64? No. Then x increases to what? Plus 1 again, making 3. So 2 raised to the power 3 is it 64? No. And it keeps on doing that until we hit 64. Then let's print out x. So we've not found the answer yet. Until we go to the final and realize that x is what? X is equal to 6. So 2 raised to the power 6 is rather what? 64. So the condition has met. The condition met when x was what? Equal to 6. Okay. So a while loop is a loop you run for a number of times. Remember, the syntax is simple. While condition semicolon action. Okay. While condition semicolon action. So let me quickly add this to the video so that I don't have to make an extra video on that part. Now, there are some keywords you need to take note of. Okay, so let's say keywords when using while loops, or when using while and for loops. Okay, and one of them is the pass. You already know how to use pass. Proceeds or allows the computer to carry on its work. Okay, so you say pass, just carry on. Then another keyword is break. Okay, now break, the break says terminates a loop entirely. Then we have pass, break, and continue. Continue rather terminates the current loop to allow the beginning of the next loop. Okay, so we are going to focus on continue and break. I've already taught you pass using the if statement. Now you can use the word pass in if statements, for loop, and what? While loops. Okay, you can use break in only for and while loops, and you can use continue to in only what? For and while loops. Okay, so quickly let me save this one. So let us look at these words in detail. So I'm going to look at the word break. Okay, so let's write a simple for loop or while loop, anyone, but then we are going to break. Okay, but this word break is usually used when you are using a while loop. It's most often seen in a while loop. Okay, because for a for loop it will terminate automatically, but then let's see how we do it. So let's say we have while x is less than, let's say, 100. Let's say we want to write a code, okay, and we want to find we want to write a code, okay, but then we want to find the first time, or like the first, let me say, okay, so let's say we are writing a code to find the first um highest factor of a number. Or just let me look at an example in the slides. So okay, so we have a list here. So we have a list here. Now in the list there is a mixture of data. Okay, control C. There is a lot of mixture of data. Okay, so we have Anne, 67, mouse head, but we want to look for a word that is 3-letter words. We want to look through the data and find any word that is 3-letter words. Okay, so let us use that one as an example. Okay, so let's put a list, LST. The reason I didn't spell the word list in full is because the word list means something special to Python, so you can't use that as your variable name. Okay, so let me, oh then I have to let me retype them. Okay, so lst is equal to square brackets and, okay, then 67 comma, then mouse, then head, then there, okay, then 90, then 0.1, then apple. Okay, so our aim is to look through this data and find a 3-letter word. Now, are we going to use a for loop or a while loop? Okay, our goal is to find the first 3-letter word we need. So we are looking, the problem presented to us is a condition based kind of problem. We are going to look through the list until we meet a word that is 3-letter words. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to say if, or we're going to say while, before then let's define the word, or let's say the length of the word. The length of the word is equal to, let's say, 0 by default. So we say while the length of the word is not equal to 3, while the length of the word is not equal to 3, keep on doing the following. And what it should do is it should pick the next value. Okay, so no, instead of using a while loop, let us use a for loop. Okay, I can still use a while loop, but it's best to use a for loop. So sometimes you have to go back and forth. So we say um for data, okay, in the list lst, we check if the length of the data is equal to 3, is equal to what? Yes, is equal to 3. Then we print it out. We print that data out. Okay. Then else we continue. So we are saying that if the length of the data is equal to 3, we print it out. Else you just continue. Continue means that end this current loop and go back and start again. Now, if you don't bring the continue, by default, it goes back to start again. So let us see how this one works. When I run it, I know we are going to get some errors. Yes, because the len function can only be used for data type that are iterable. You can't use the len function for a number like 67, and that is why it failed. So, and you can't say a number is 3-letter words. Okay, so first we have to check when data, the variable name data, goes to pick a data from the list. We have to check whether it's an integer or a float. If it's an integer and a float, we don't need to check for its length. We just move on. So what I'm going to do here is say that if type, okay, if the type of data is equal to int, okay, or the type of data is equal to float, is equal to float. So this is if at least one of them is true. So if the type of data is an integer or the type of data is a float, we don't need to check for its length. Automatically, that is not what we are looking for. What we are looking for is a string with 3 characters or a 3-letter word string. We say what? Continue. Continue means that don't keep on doing the process. Stop, because the data you are holding in the first place, it's not going to satisfy our criteria of being a 3-letter word, like a number. So just go back to the top and start. Let me clear this one. So when data picks the word and when you check the type of it is not an integer and a float. So it comes to this if statement. So let me say else if, because I started with the first if. So I'm using the else if the and it goes to pick the next number, okay, which is 67. What's the type of 67? It's an integer. Okay, then it continues. Goes to pick mouse. The type of mouse is not an integer and it's not a float. Then it comes to check the length of the data, and if it is equal to 3, it prints that data out. Okay, and we break. Break means that now we found what we are looking for. We said we are looking for the first occurrence of a 3-letter word. So once we find the first time, we don't need to continue the data to check for 90, check for 0.1, and check for apple. We just end it there. That is break. So break means that stop the loop and exit the loop. Okay, so that is break. But continue means that don't continue the current loop, but go and start, like go and continue the next loop. So when you pick an and you run it, it's not successful. When you pick 67, the data type is an integer. So your computer stops and run it again. Okay. And running it again means that now the computer ignore the 67 and goes to pick what? Mouse. And keep on doing that. And pick head and pick there. And once it picks there, the length of the data there is equal to 3. So it prints that word out and breaks, meaning it stops the whole thing and doesn't need to proceed to this because we are looking for the first occurrence of what? A 3-letter word. So let's run it and see. And that's where we got our there from. Okay. So this is how we can use the continue and the break. So let me write their meanings again. So terminates the entire loop. Okay. And this one terminates the current loop and continues with the next loop. So terminates the current loop and continues with the next loop. Okay, so this is how the two words are being used. And when you use the word pass, it means it should jump, or it should just pass by, move on. Okay, so this brings us to the end of this lecture on the while loop. Okay, while loop. Okay, bye.